Mastering building allyship in the workplace. Organizations that neglect allyship risk demise by disengaging employees and damaging their reputation. How can organizations avoid overlooking the potential pitfalls of not fostering a culture of allyship in the workplace, and what strategies can they employ to mitigate the risks of decreased employee engagement, productivity, and morale, as well as potential legal and reputational consequences that may arise from neglecting to build a supportive and inclusive environment? Organizations can avoid overlooking the potential pitfalls of not fostering a culture of allyship in the workplace by recognizing the importance of creating a supportive and inclusive environment that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Neglecting to build a culture of allyship can lead to decreased employee engagement, productivity, and morale, as well as potential legal and reputational consequences. To mitigate these risks, organizations can employ several strategies. Firstly, organizations must acknowledge that allyship is an ongoing process that requires effort and commitment from leadership and employees at all levels. This involves recognizing the historical and systemic barriers that have led to the marginalization of certain groups and understanding how these barriers impact employees' experiences in the workplace. By acknowledging these power imbalances, organizations can begin to address the systemic inequalities that perpetuate discrimination and exclusion. Secondly, organizations should establish clear policies and procedures that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. This includes developing and implementing policies that address discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, as well as providing training and resources to support employees who have experienced marginalization. Additionally, organizations should establish accountability mechanisms to ensure that employees who engage in discriminatory behavior are held responsible for their actions. Thirdly, organizations can create opportunities for employees to engage in allyship development through training, workshops, and mentorship programs. These programs should focus on building empathy, understanding, and knowledge about the experiences of marginalized groups, as well as providing strategies for employees to become active allies. Organizations can also create employee resource groups, ERGs, that provide a safe space for employees to connect with others who share similar identities or experiences. Fourthly, organizations should prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in their talent management practices. This includes ensuring that hiring processes are free from bias, providing equal opportunities for advancement and development, and addressing pay equity gaps. By prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion in talent management practices, organizations can create a more diverse and inclusive workforce that is better equipped to support a culture of allyship. Fifthly, organizations should regularly collect and analyze data on employee experiences, engagement, and sentiment to identify areas for improvement. This includes conducting regular surveys and focus groups to understand the experiences of marginalized groups and identifying barriers to inclusion and equity. By regularly collecting and analyzing data, organizations can identify areas for improvement and develop targeted strategies to address these issues. Sixthly, organizations should recognize and reward employees who demonstrate allyship behaviors and promote a culture of inclusion. This includes providing recognition and rewards for employees who take on allyship roles, participate in ERGs, or engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. By recognizing and rewarding allyship behaviors, organizations can create a culture that values and supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. Seventhly, organizations should establish partnerships with external organizations and community groups that support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This includes partnering with organizations that provide diversity, equity, and inclusion training, as well as organizations that support marginalized communities. By establishing partnerships with external organizations can access expertise and resources that can help them build a more inclusive and supportive workplace culture. Eighthly, organizations should prioritize transparency and accountability in their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This includes regularly communicating progress and setbacks to employees, as well as holding leaders and employees accountable for their actions. By prioritizing transparency and accountability, organizations can create a culture of trust and respect that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Finally, Organizations should recognize that building a culture of allyship is an ongoing process that requires effort and commitment from all employees. This involves creating a culture that values and supports diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as providing opportunities for employees to engage in allyship development and build empathy and understanding with marginalized groups. By recognizing the importance of allyship and implementing strategies to support a culture of inclusion, organizations can mitigate the risks of decreased employee engagement, productivity, and morale, as well as potential legal and reputational consequences that may arise from neglecting to build a supportive and inclusive environment.